Imagine a car, parked all night, cold engine, cold oil, everything still. Now imagine someone turns the key, but instead of driving, they just sit there, engine barely running, going nowhere. That is your brain, most mornings. You wake up, you sit down at your desk, you ask your mind to think clearly, solve problems, find the right words, while your whole body is still parked, cold, barely running. No wonder the first thoughts of the day feel slow, foggy, stuck. You are asking the car to drive while it is still sitting in the driveway, engine just barely turning over. You read a sentence. You read it again. The meaning does not quite land. The cursor blinks on an empty page, waiting for words that have not arrived yet. You think, I just need more coffee, more time, more sleep. But maybe the engine simply needs something else first. Not fuel, not rest, just a little movement before anyone asks it to go anywhere important. Today, we are talking about something that surprises a lot of people. Why moving your body in the morning wakes up your brain, not just your muscles. Not a long workout, not a gym session, just a few minutes of movement before you sit down to think. Here is the question for today. How does moving your body in the morning, even for just a few minutes, actually wake up your brain, not just your muscles? By the end of this episode, you will understand exactly how this works, and you will know what to do tomorrow morning before you sit down to work or study. One small thing, a few minutes, that is all. Let's start. First, let's talk about why most people never connect exercise with thinking. It is not because they do not care about their minds. There are real reasons, and every one of them makes sense. Here is the first reason. Exercise feels like it belongs to the body, not the mind. People learn early on that exercise is for muscles, for strength, for looking a certain way. Thinking feels like a completely separate activity, something that happens in the head, with the body simply along for the ride. The two rarely seem connected. Here is the second reason. The word exercise sounds like too much for a busy morning. When people hear exercise, they picture a gym, weights, a long run, sweat, a whole hour set aside. That image does not match someone who has 15 minutes to get ready and start working. So the idea gets dismissed before it is even considered. Here is the third reason. People blame the wrong things for feeling foggy. When their mind feels slow in the morning, they think, I need more sleep. I need stronger coffee. I need more time to wake up. Movement rarely crosses their mind as the missing piece because nobody ever told them the two were related. Here is the fourth reason. Moving before working feels like wasting valuable time. Those first few minutes feel precious. There is reading to do, messages to answer, work waiting. Spending that time jumping in place or walking around the room can feel like delaying the real work instead of preparing for it. Here is the fifth reason. Sitting still looks like focus, so it feels like the right way to start. A person sitting quietly at a desk looks serious, ready, focused. Someone jumping around the room before work looks almost silly by comparison. Appearances suggest that stillness is the smart choice, even when it is not actually helping the mind work any better. Here is the sixth reason. Nobody ever explained the actual connection. Many people have heard, somewhere, that exercise is good for the brain, but without understanding why, that phrase stays vague and easy to ignore, especially when there always seems to be something more urgent to do first. Here is the seventh reason. The benefit feels invisible, so it never gets prioritized. You cannot see oxygen moving through your blood. You cannot watch your brain working faster. Compare that to something like a messy room, where the mess is right there in front of you, demanding attention. A foggy mind in the morning is real, but it is invisible, easy to push aside in favor of things you can actually see and measure. Here is the eighth reason, perhaps the simplest of all. Movement was never part of how anyone was taught to get ready for the day. Getting ready usually means washing up, getting dressed, eating something, maybe checking messages. Moving your body, on purpose, for the sake of your mind, was simply never added to that list by most families or schools. It is not missing because anyone decided it was unimportant. It is missing because it was never included in the first place. All of these reasons make complete sense. Nobody is doing anything wrong by sitting down to work without moving first. Today, you are going to learn exactly why a few minutes of movement can change how your mind works, right from the very start of your day. So, how does moving your body actually wake up your brain? Let's keep this simple. Your brain is a small part of your body, but it is an unusually hungry one. It needs a large amount of oxygen and blood to keep working well, much more than its size would suggest. When you sit still, your blood moves at a fairly slow, steady pace. Your brain still gets oxygen, but not as much as it could get if your body were moving. When you move your body walking fast, jumping in place, going up and down some stairs, your heart starts beating faster to keep up with your muscles. That faster heartbeat does not only send more blood to your legs and arms, it sends more blood, carrying more oxygen, everywhere in your body, including your brain. With more oxygen reaching it, your brain can work more efficiently. Different parts of your brain seem to communicate with each other a little faster and more smoothly. That is part of why thoughts can feel quicker, clearer, and more connected shortly after you move, compared to right after waking up and sitting still. Think back to the car. A cold engine runs roughly, unevenly, using fuel inefficiently. Once it warms up, everything moves more smoothly, more easily. Your brain works in a somewhat similar way. A cold brain, one that has not had any blood pumping faster through it yet, works roughly too, slow to start, slow to connect ideas. A few minutes of movement is like warming up that engine before you ask it to do any real driving. Many people say that after even a short burst of movement in the morning, their mind feels noticeably sharper. Not because they became smarter in those few minutes, but because their brain finally received enough oxygen to work the way it was always capable of working. You might wonder how this is different from simply drinking coffee, since coffee is also known for helping people feel more alert. Coffee works mainly by changing certain signals inside your brain, making you feel less tired and more awake. It does not actually increase the blood and oxygen reaching your brain the way movement does. The two effects are different, even though they can feel a little similar. Many people find that movement helps with clarity and connecting ideas, while coffee helps more with simply feeling awake and alert. Doing both, in either order, often works better than relying on just one. There is something else worth knowing here. This effect does not last forever. It usually fades after some time. That is exactly why doing this first thing in the morning matters so much. You are not trying to feel sharp at some random point in the day. You are trying to make sure your mind is sharp during those early hours, when so much important thinking often happens, planning your day, answering messages, starting your most demanding work. Here is a simple example. There was a writer who worked from home, someone who needed fresh ideas almost every single day. Every morning, they sat down at their desk right after waking up, determined to start writing immediately. More often than not, the words simply would not come. They would stare at the empty page, certain they just needed more coffee or more time to feel awake. One morning, almost as an experiment, they tried something different. Before sitting down, they jumped in place for about 3 minutes. Nothing more. No real plan behind it, just curiosity about whether it would make any difference at all. When they finally sat down to write, something felt different. The words came more easily than usual. Ideas seemed to connect to each other faster, one leading naturally into the next. They were not more talented that particular morning. Their brain had simply received what it needed, oxygen and moving blood, before being asked to do something difficult. Here is a second example, from a very different kind of morning. There was a student who studied for difficult exams early each day, before her classes began. She always felt slow during that first hour, rereading the same paragraph 2 or 3 times before any of it truly made sense to her. A friend suggested she try moving her body first, even just walking quickly around her room for a few minutes. She doubted it would help much. It felt completely unrelated to studying, but she tried it anyway, mostly to see what would happen. That morning, she understood the material faster than usual. She still studied for the same number of hours overall, but those few minutes of movement seemed to help the difficult ideas connect together more smoothly, without that early, foggy slowness she usually had to push through. Here is one more short example, from someone who never thought of themselves as someone who exercises at all. There was an older man who took a short walk to fetch the morning newspaper every single day, simply out of long habit, never really exercised to him. One day, he noticed something. After that short walk, doing his crossword puzzle felt noticeably easier than usual. The answers seemed to come to him more quickly, more clearly. He had never once thought of that walk as something connected to his thinking. It had simply been part of his routine for years, quietly helping his mind along the entire time, without him ever realizing it. 3 completely different mornings, a writer, a student, an older man with a simple daily habit. None of them set out to test a theory. They simply noticed afterward that their minds felt different than usual. That noticing is really the whole point of trying this for yourself. So now you understand the connection between moving and thinking clearly. But here is where it is easy to get this wrong. People imagine they need a real workout, weights, a long run, something that leaves them tired and out of breath before they have even had breakfast. That sounds far too demanding for early in the morning, so the whole idea gets dropped immediately. That is not what this is. You do not need to exercise hard. You do not need special equipment. You only need a few minutes of movement that gets your heart beating a little faster than usual. Here is exactly how to do it. After you get ready in the morning, before you sit down to work or study, move your body for about 3 to 5 minutes. Walk quickly around your room or your home. Jump in place for a minute or two. Go up and down some stairs a few times, if you have them. Stretch in a way that includes some actual movement, not just standing still. That is the entire habit. No gym clothes required, no special space needed. Just enough movement to get your heart pumping a little faster than it was while you were sitting or lying still. This works especially well right before tasks that genuinely need your mind. Writing, studying, solving problems, planning your day. The clearer thinking that follows tends to matter most exactly when you need it most. If mornings already feel rushed, you can keep this very short. Even 2 minutes of brisk walking or jumping in place is enough to make a real difference. This does not need to take long to be worth doing. Attach this to a moment you already have. Right after you finish getting ready, after washing your face, after getting dressed, that is your moment. Before you sit down at your desk, before you open your books, you move. If you are not sure what kind of movement to choose, here are a few simple options that work well, depending on your space and your mood. If you have room to walk, walk quickly back and forth for a few minutes. If you have stairs, going up and down a few times works just as well. If you would rather stay in one place, jumping in place, or doing a few quick squats, can get your heart rate up just as effectively. None of these need to look impressive or be done perfectly. Nobody is watching, and there is no correct form to worry about. The only real goal is to feel your heart beating a little faster than it was a few minutes ago before you sit back down. If your space is small, or you share a room with someone still sleeping, you can choose quieter options, like gentle jogging in place or slow squats instead of jumping. The goal is simply movement that fits your situation, not a specific exercise you feel forced to copy exactly. When you do this every morning, it becomes part of preparing your mind for the day, the same way warming up a car becomes part of getting ready to drive somewhere. You stop deciding to do it. It simply happens before the real thinking begins. So here is what you can do. Tomorrow morning, before you sit down to work or study, move your body for 3 to 5 minutes. Walk fast around your room. Jump in place. Go up and down the stairs a few times. Anything that makes your heart beat a little faster. Then sit down and start your work as you normally would. So, remember, tomorrow morning, before you sit down to think 3 to 5 minutes of movement, that is the one thing. Can you try this? I think you can. It takes only a few minutes. It costs nothing. And tomorrow morning, your mind might feel noticeably sharper than it usually does, right when you need it most. Try it especially before something that requires real thinking, an important email, a difficult assignment, a problem you have been stuck on. Notice whether the ideas come a little more easily once your body has already moved. You do not need to feel motivated to do this. Motivation is not really the point. You only need to move for a few minutes, whether you feel like it or not, and let your body do the rest of the work for your mind. We are almost at the end of today's episode, but before we finish, let me paint one small picture for you. Tomorrow morning, you sit down to work, but this time, your body already moved. 3 minutes of fast walking or jumping in place. Nothing more than that. You open the page. You start to read. And this time the words land. The idea comes faster than usual. You write one sentence, and the next one follows more easily than it did yesterday. You are not thinking harder. You have not become smarter overnight. Your brain simply has what it needs. Oxygen, moving blood, a body that already woke up before being asked to think. The engine is warm now, and it is finally ready to actually drive. It did not need a long trip to the gym or an hour you did not have to spare. It only needed a few minutes, somewhere between waking up and sitting down, where the engine quietly warmed itself before the real journey began. Let's remember what we talked about today. Your brain needs a lot of oxygen to work well, more than most other parts of your body. When you sit still, blood moves slowly, and your brain gets less oxygen than it could. A few minutes of movement makes your heart beat faster, sending more oxygen to your brain. With more oxygen, your brain connects ideas faster and feels sharper. Moving your body for just a few minutes before you work or study is like flipping a switch for your brain. Tomorrow morning, before you sit down to work or study, 3 to 5 minutes of movement. That is the one thing. Now, let's go over our words for today. Think. You try to think, but the thought does not come until your body moves. Oxygen. Your brain needs oxygen to work well, more than you might expect. Sharp. After moving, your mind feels sharp, clear, and quick. Connect. Moving your body helps your brain connect ideas faster. Idea. A good idea often comes right after you move, not while you sit still. Switch. Moving your body is like flipping a switch for your brain. 6 small words, 1 small habit, easy to remember, and easier still to test for yourself tomorrow morning. If this was helpful, listen again or share it with a friend who wants to learn English and feel better in the morning. It is a small habit, but the difference it makes is something your own mind will notice, often before you even fully understand why. See you next time.